Alina having white hair is super iconic. Like, I'm just thinking about it. Like, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna dye my hair white. I'm just thinking about it. I did it. Hello book lovers, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Livinginlibros. Today I'm going to finish spoiling the Shadow and Bone series. We are now officially on the last book, Ruin and Rising. And let me just start summarizing it for you. Okay, let's get started with the summary. I'm gonna move these balloons. I don't think they're helping this aesthetic. Okay. Today we are also joined by my penguin friend, Penny. Hello. Miss Penny is named after Pennywise the Clown. Don't ask me why I chose that name for her, but we are here now. Her name is Penny, alright? Have some respect. Okay, so I have very helpfully divided this summary into 5 parts. Is this 5? I have helpfully divided the summary into 6 parts. 6 parts? Yeah, 6 parts. So this first part is what I have annotated in my notes as the escape. So Alina's healed up from her fight with the Darkling in the last novel, but because she's underground in the White Cathedral, she can't use any of her powers, which basically means she's prisoner to the apparatus, and she can't leave. So with the help of Mal, the twins, and Zoya, they bust a hole in the ceiling of the White Cathedral, allowing the sunlight to come in and for Alina to use her powers, thereby gaining the upper hand against the apparatus and wielding her power. That very night, Alina and her newfound friends escape the White Cathedral, and what follows is like about 100 pages of Alina bonding with her new friends, which we love. I love that for Alina. Homegirl needs some friends. So I'm just gonna name them now. So she has Mal, Zoya, Tamar, and Toya, the twins of course, Jenya, David, Serhey, and newcomer Harshal, a fire summoner, who is also a cat owner, and he names his cat Cat, which basically means cat in their language. We also have Adric and Marie, and Adric and Marie, who are siblings. Also important to note, Tamar and Marie have started dating at this point, and they all grow close together while on the run. Now we're on part 2, the reunion. The group decides to camp out in some woods. Tamar is sent out into the town so she can give the signal to the other pirates, and they can then pass it on. Hopefully one of Nikolai's people sees it and then will come and meet up with Alina. While she's doing that, Aunt Mal is taking a bath by the river, and Alina decides to go talk to him, but then she sees that he's shirtless, and she's like, wow, I haven't seen Mal without a shirt in a while. So, Alina's a little stunned, got heart eyes. But then she notices that he has a new tattoo on his back, and his back is covered in her sun symbol. So she is mad because in the beginning of this book, she made it very clear that she didn't want the apparatus to tattoo the children of the people who were following her with the sun symbol. So she asked Mal why he has her symbol on him and what is this strange writing that he also has tattooed on him. And Mal's embarrassed, but he tells her that the writing basically means that he is to be a weapon. So Alina doesn't really have time to react because some rogue soldiers come upon them, and they take both of them hostage because they want to use Alina to gain the reward that the Darkling put out for her. Luckily, Nikolai arrives and saves both their butts, but one rogue soldier gets a little too close to Mal, and Alina panics and uses the cut on him to save Mal. Now, this is the first time in the whole series that we see Alina kill another human being. Nikolai ends up taking everyone who survives back to his little headquarters up in the mountains, which he calls the spinning wheel. And that's basically where he's been since book 2. He has his parents there and all the other people who survived the Nichiwoya massacre in the palace. Now, Alina and Maul's relationship is basically non-existent at this point. They both understand that Alina's destiny is to be the savior, Ravka, to defeat the Darkling, and Alina wants Maul to be with someone who's not a Grisha, and she wants him to be happy. And Maul also understands that Alina can't be with him, and he also wants her to be happy. Drama erupts in the spinning wheel when the king recognizes Genya. Now, Genya at this point has been scarred by a Nichiwoya attack. I think that's what happens, because the Darkling did not take very kindly to her betrayal when she let Maul and Alina escape his ship in the last novel. King wants Genya to be executed for poisoning him and for giving him a chronic condition. The king is basically dying because of that poison and Genya gave to him. Genya ends up pleading her case to Nikolai because the whole reason Genya ended up poisoning the king is because he was constantly sexually assaulting her. And she poisoned her skin, so that's how the king ended up becoming sick. So Nikolai does what any sensible king would do, and he exiles his parents to the colonies. His father isn't happy about that, but Nikolai's like, too bad, you're a rapist, father. And so then he also tells Genya he's going to have to punish her eventually, but for now she can just chill in the spinning wheel. Nikolai ends up getting Alina some new clothes, a brand spanking new wardrobe, some cute dresses, jewelry, everything. And Alina ends up telling her new girlfriends all about it. She shares her new wardrobe with them, and they're all very happy. And Zoya ends up making a comment saying, please break Nikolai's heart because I will tend it for him. I thought that was so funny, and they would be an interesting couple, you know. Nikolai gives Alina the clothes, but he also gives her his family's emerald, which has been passed down for generations, and Nikolai's mother never took that emerald off. So it's basically a proposal, but not officially one yet. Alina also trained with the Darkling's mom, Bagra. That's how I'm gonna choose to pronounce it. It's probably wrong, but whatevers. We're just gonna roll with it. So Alina trains with Bagra, and she is really emphasizing that Alina learned how to use the cut against the tip tops of mountains. So she eventually learns how to do that. Part 3 of this summary, the return of El Toxico, aka the Darkling, makes his entrance. After Alina receives all these gifts from Nikolai, she ends up getting in her feelings about it, and she feels all alone. She understands her destiny lies with Nikolai, and yet she turns to El Toxico, the Darkling. So when she opens her bond with the Darkling, they end up flirting pretty heavy, and the Darkling tells Alina that he wants her to know his real name, and not as the Darkling, but the name that his mom gave him, which is Alexander. And Alina laughs because his name is basic. And the Darkling also tells Alina that she's meant to be his balance. While he summons dark, she summons the sun, blah blah. I think we get the point by now. And he also tells Alina that if she were to marry Ma or Nikolai, she's going to outlive both of them because they aren't Grisha. And this is the first time Alina actually realizes that she's gonna outlive her husband. The Darkling also tells Alina to thank David for him because thanks to his notes that he made in the previous novel, he was able to figure out how to enter the fold without Alina's help. So Alina realizes that they are in trouble. So she closes the bond and she goes to her friends to tell them that they need to make a new plan. Alina ends up going to Bagra and she asks her about the story of Morozova. Now, Morozova is the person who created the 3 amplifiers that the Darkling and Alina have been searching for this entire series. And it turns out he's also Bagra's father and the Darkling's grandfather. So Bagra ends up telling Alina how her father came to create these amplifiers, and his obsession basically made him not so good of a father, an absent father, more like. And so Bagra tells Alina that once, while she was a child, she was playing with her little sister, and her little sister was not a Grisha. And so Bagra was upset with her sister one day, and she ends up accidentally killing her little sister with the cut. And it is Morozova who brings back his youngest daughter to life. But the villagers did not like that he was able to resurrect someone, so they drowned Morozova and his youngest daughter. This then leaves Bagra and her mom to fend for themselves, but Bagra's mom can't take the turmoil, the suffering, and she basically shuts down. So it is Bagra who's left to survive on her own. Eventually Bagra makes a life for herself, and she ends up wanting a child from the strongest Grisha she could find at the time. So that's how the Darkling is born. Now, the Darkling ends up being raised just with his mother, and they are kicked out town after town because of their power and because the people fear Grisha. And this is where the Darkling learns to have this need to protect other Grisha and to elevate them to positions of power. Last thing Bagra ends up telling Alina is whether or not she's ready to pay the price for activating the 3rd amplifier. And Alina doesn't have a choice, which is what she tells Bagra, whether I'm ready or not, does it matter? I need to save Ravika. After this, Nikolai officially proposes to Alina, even though they don't love each other, but he asks her, but he hopes that eventually they will learn to love each other and have a very powerful reign. Alina doesn't exactly say no, but they both understand that's her destiny. Ma understands that's her destiny. Alina's meant to be queen. She's meant to rule Ravika. And I guess Nikolai is the best king that they have around for Alina to marry. The very next morning, the Darkling returns, aka everyone's favorite Toxico. He makes his grand re-entrance, and he has one of his Nichivoya possess Nikolai, therefore making Nikolai half Nichivoya, half man, all monster. And Alina even notes that the Darkling made her prince a monster. Darkling plays his game again, telling Alina to surrender, blah blah blah. But it's all thanks to Bagra for sacrificing herself that everyone's has time to escape. For hunting the Firebird. So Alina and the friends that have escaped, which is basically everyone from the White Cathedral except Sergei and Stig, who unfortunately perished during the Darkling's attack. So they end up resting, setting up camp in some woods again. Alina's miserable because the loss of friends and mourning that the Darkling keeps interrupting her plans. She's mourning what he did to Nikolai. Nichivoya Nikolai is also following them around this time, and it's alluded that he can understand what's going on. He just has trouble communicating with words with Alina and the crew, but he knows who they are and he knows not to harm them. The group ends up splitting up, with half going to hunt the Firebird, and it is on this hunt for the Firebird that Ma and Alina finally hash out what's been hanging in the air for so long, well, basically verbalizing that they can't be together. Ma and Alina end up finding the Firebird when the Firebird tries to push Alina off a cliff, and Ma saves her. And it's in this moment when Ma saves her that they both realize the Firebird was never meant to be Alina's third amplifier. It has always been Mal. Naturally, Alina's horrified by this revelation because she doesn't want to kill her best friend or her first love. And Mal is honestly ready to give. Mal is ready to die. He's ready to die for Alina, ready to help her save Ravika. But Alina just can't do it. She won't. She refuses. And Jenya suggests, Jenya and David suggest that there might be another way. I was hoping on that. But Mal has Alina promise him that if it comes down to it, she will kill him and use him as a sacrifice. Once the gang meets up with Tamar again, she tells Alina that the Darkling has taken the children that had been evacuated from the White Palace to Alina's childhood orphanage where she grew up. They're gone. They are gone from there. So Alina's panicked and she wants to know what he did to the kids. So she opens up the bond she has with the Darkling, and before she can even ask, she realizes that the Darkling slaughtered the old instructor that was sent along with the kids, and he killed Alina's caretaker and the director of the orphanage. The director of the orphanage that Mal and her attended. So she's gutted by this. She's horrified and grieving more. And the Darkling tells her that he's going to hunt her like an animal until she has nothing left but him. Toxico. 5. The plan. So Alina and friends decide that they're going to meet the Darkling because he told Alina she has 5 days to meet up with him or it's over. Alina's friends ask her if there's any way that she could camouflage all of them so they can sneak up behind the Darkling and have a fighting chance of winning against him. Now, Alina did something similar when she first met Nikolai, and she was able to camouflage his boat so that they could sail during the day and not be spotted by anyone. So she practiced this new technique of making her friends invisible in this abandoned orchard that they found. At this point, Mal and Alina have reconciled their relationship and they end up sleeping together in this orchard the night before the battle. And it's also decided that Jenya and David are going to stay at the orchard along with the kids that they've picked up along the way. Adric, who is Marie's little brother, and Misha, who was Bagra's caretaker. Alina also ends up trying to heal Nikolai using her sun summoning powers to inject him with some light, but it doesn't work and Nikolai is upset. At the battle with the Darkling, Alina's plan to camouflage her friends ends up working and they are able to sneak up behind him. However, once Alina is on his ship, she ends up being shot and this causes her to lose focus and drop the invisibility cloak that she had around her friends. The Darkling then is able to capture her. Alina, thinking on her feet like always, decides to use their bond against him. So she appears to him through their bond, but she's also physically there. So this distracts the Darkling enough for her to get away, and she runs. And Ma ends up finding Alina after she flees, and he tells her that now is the time she needs to kill him and take him as a third amplifier. And he takes her hand and he curves it around the knife he was holding, and she has her take his life with his assistant. When Mal dies, Alina's other amplifiers break and she loses her power, and instead her sun summoning power ends up going to everybody who is not a Grisha. So the Darkling realizes that Alina's amplifiers are broken and that Mal was a third amplifier, and he's confused, and then he's horrified that Alina is no longer Grisha. Meanwhile, Alina doesn't care anymore because Maul is dead, and she mourning him and trying to do everything that's possible to bring him back to life. Darkling then gets mad because she one-upped him again. So Alina does what anybody else would do in this situation, and she stabs him. However, Alina ends up mourning his death now as well. Mourning Darkling's death, she hears Maul take a breath and she realizes that he's alive. Meanwhile, everything the Darklings created becomes unmade. The Nichivoya, the fold, whatever he did to Nikolai is just a normal prince now. Even Jenya's scars become unmade, and the scar Alina has on her back somewhat fades. On part 6, the resolution. So Alina and Maul end up living, they survive, and they are taken back to the orchard to rest. Nikolai is rushed to the throne to claim his title as king, and Harksha, the cool fire Grisha, who was also the cat owner, ends up dying in the battle with the Darkling, unfortunately. Let's take a moment. He was my favorite character in this novel. Okay. So Alina ends up faking her death, and her and Maul take new names. And Alina ends up asking Nikolai to pardon Zhenya, which he does. And she also asks him to make Zhenya, David, and Zoya the leaders of the Second Army, which he does as well. Nikolai also asks Alina if she would become his queen again, but Alina is honestly not interested anymore and at all. Alina turns him down, of course. Alina's body double ends up being burned alongside the Darkling's body, and so Alina and Maul end up getting married and starting an orphanage together. And Alina's no longer a Grisha, so she just lives her life normally, but she still has the gray hair, which is cool, I guess. But yeah, that's how this book ends, and that's it. That's the end. Listen, the conclusion to this book was not satisfying for me at all. I have a lot of notes about my thoughts and feelings about this ending in this book, but rather than make this video super long with all my thoughts and try to cram them in there, I decided just to give you a condensed version, really. And I'm gonna put my full thoughts in my blog post about this novel. So if anybody wants to check that out, I'll leave it linked down in the description bar for your convenience for all my rants and ravings. Okay, I'm gonna start with the positive things and the things that I really liked. So I enjoyed Alina bonding with her friends the most out of this whole novel, and throughout the series we hardly see Alina have friends. She makes friends with Zhenya, and that's about it in the first novel. I mean, she has Maul, but Maul doesn't really pay that much attention to her in the first novel either because they're separated. Throughout this novel, you see her make friends, and you see her build those bonds with her friends, and I like that, especially in this novel, you see them grow closer and how they basically will do anything for her. Like, I was so happy. I mean, I like friendships like that. The ending of this novel, as much as I disliked it, did make narrative sense. Alina and Maul ending up together makes sense because it's how they began this series. In every epilogue of every novel in this series, you see Alina and Maul together. They are always running away together. In the first novel, it's Alina and Maul who run and hide away from the Darkling, and it's in this last glimpse that we see of them ever, we see them also again together, this time not hiding but living their life that they've always dreamed about, I suppose. As I said, the ending of the novel made sense, but was it a satisfying conclusion for me? Hell no. We began this series watching and reading about Alina learning to love this part of herself the Grisha part that she's been keeping hidden deep within herself for so long. And we see her throughout the series learning to love that part of herself, learning to admire it, try to feed it with the amplifiers, wanting it to grow. Alina also becomes increasingly concerned throughout the novel whether getting more and more amplifiers is going to make her become dark and evil. But like, let's be honest, Alina has too much heart for that to ever be a thing. She pardons the stag, she hesitates to kill the sea whip, and she flat out refused to kill Maul. I don't see her ever becoming what the Darkling became, because she gives mercy and she has a lot of heart. So I think the only reason we got the ending we did in this novel is because Alina and the Darkling wield so much power. And because of that, it's become a liability for Ravika. So I think it only made narrative sense for both of them to lose that power and perish, so there'd be like some sort of balance. I mean, Alina and the Darkling are meant to balance each other. We'll get to that later. They're meant to balance each other, but they can't agree on a mission statement. They're both on opposite sides, moral-wise, thought-wise. Okay, here's one of the big issues I have with this series, and I had wanted this last novel to explore it, but it doesn't. The Darkling's backstory, like where is it? Why isn't it included in this series? I think it's a disservice for us readers, because if you're gonna have a villain that's gonna be such a big part of the heroine's journey, like the Darkling was, I wanted to see why he is the way he is. Like, why did he turn out this way? Why is he so hungry for power? Why does he want to give Grisha so much power? And you see a hint of this when Bagra talks to Alina about why she and the Darkling had to constantly flee, because everyone was scared of their powers. And she hints that this is when the Darkling learns to become the way he is. I want to know why the Darkling became so violent in pursuit of his goals. I'm also curious of why the Darkling was so obsessed with Alina's power. It's stated in the novel that the reason he's so obsessed with Alina is because he wants to control her power in order to pursue his goals. But if that's the case, why does he tell her in the novel that she's supposed to be his balance if he was just going to use her? See, things just aren't adding up. Okay, this is the last point I'm going to touch on for this video, but like I said, if you want to read more of my rants, just go check out the link in the description to my blog. So, speaking of balance, the Darkling and Alina had none. The Darkling has no redeeming qualities. He's all evil and bad and has darkness, while Alina hardly has any darkness. Sure, she killed somebody to defend Maul, and she got his power. We see her being able to control a part of the Darkling's power, but like not really. She can summon shadows, but that's about the extent of the power she can wield from the Darkling. And what's up with the series emphasizing that Alina's not as strong as the Darkling? If she's going to be the Darkling's balance, why does she need amplifiers to be as strong as him? I never understood that. If Alina is powerful, if Alina and the Darkling are the most powerful Grisha at this point in time in Ravika, why does it take Alina 2-3 amplifiers in order to defeat him? Well, I guess she didn't need them after all, as we learned in the summary. She really didn't need them. That Alina not being as powerful as the Darkling, that's not a balance. Like, sure, Alina kicks the Darkling's ass every now and then, but it's always emphasized that she isn't as strong as him. And I don't like that. I think she should have been created as being strong without the amplifiers. I think maybe she could have become stronger with the amplifiers, but I think Alina should have been able to take the Darkling without having them. Yeah. Let me know if you agree with those brief thoughts I shared, or with any other thoughts if you went on to my blog and actually read the rest of my rants. Yeah, let me know if you agree with this ending. Did you like the series? Did you hate the series? Were you also wondering why is the Darkling such a toxico? Let me leave this video off with this note. If you were a person in this series, a character in this series, really, who would you become besties with? I said I would become besties with Alina, but honestly, I think I would get tired of her always running to the Darkling. It'd be exhausting trying to keep her away from this toxic man. I think I would probably become more besties with Genya or Zoya, just because Zoya, I feel like Zoya's gonna take me on adventures. Like, I'm gonna be real. Zoya's so pretty. She's just, you know what? Zoya's gonna take me on adventures, but like, who's to say she's not gonna abandon me for some dude? Nah, Zoya wouldn't do that. She wouldn't do that. Okay, I'll be besties with Zoya. That's gonna be my answer. I hope you enjoyed this summary, this recap of the Shadow and Bone series, and I hope this helped you prepare for the series when it eventually comes out on Netflix. That's gonna be it for now. I shall see you in my next video, which hopefully is going to be a DIY, and I'll leave you guessing on what that DIY is. But for now, I'm just gonna say bye, and I guess I'll see you soon. Okay, bye.